So if you're not interested, if you just came here for the charts and data, we're good. We won't be showing anymore. But if you are enjoying the conversation and you just want to hang out for a little bit more, I'll kind of give you my liner notes on what I've been tweeting about. And then maybe I'll take some questions and we'll move on. Okay. All right. So quick liner notes. Share. If you haven't, please follow me on @NerdsForYang. And by the way, if you're joining late and you haven't already, please like and share this live stream so that more people can discover it. So we had a big interview this Friday with Andrew Yang himself. Had 5,800 viewers just on Twitter and another 5,000 on YouTube. So it hit 10,000 views in about a day, which was cool for our little Nerds for Humanity channel. And Yang talked quite a bit about the Humanity Forward movement and his pilot to provide COVID-19 relief aid in Brooklyn. I think he's raised $1 million to do that. So, that's an example of someone who's like doing stuff. I was going to say doing shit, but yeah. This is me being live right now. I just had an interesting interview with Kristen Slevin, who is a former Republican, I think Yangocrat is how she would describe herself, talking about starting nonprofits and running for office. I've got 9 interviews lined up, including Republican running for Senate in Montana, Dan Larson, who's trying to challenge the incumbent Republican, got Herzog running for Congress, Heidi for Congress, Arturo mainly goes by Tully, Roberto Blake, Blair Washington for Congress, Lacey Delane, the Yang Scream from Georgia, and Andrew Wan from the, I think, Youth Activists group. So if you aren't subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do it so you don't miss out on these great interviews. Dudes, you are going to be, you are going to get a treat if you haven't seen this video. I got to turn on audio for you guys. This, I swear to God, I crack up laughing every time I watch this little video. Hold on a second. Let's pause it. Let's go back. Let's turn on sound. Hopefully you guys are going to be able to hear this.
Because of coronavirus, you are going to be quarantined, but you have a choice. Do you A, quarantine with your wife and child, or B. Because of coronavirus, you are going to be quarantined, but you have a choice. Do you A, quarantine with your wife and child, or B.
Oh, shite. I'll put a link to that one in the chat if you guys want to check it out as well. All right. Moving on. Let's see. Hold on. I talked about Mike for Kentucky, who is a former U.S. Marine lieutenant colonel and is now a farmer in Kentucky. He's challenging Mitch McConnell. If you haven't checked out Mike, check him out. He's legit, in my opinion. This is his, I think this is his niece saying, hello, nerds, Nerds for Humanity. That's awesome. This is me doing a survey of what worries most people about Corona. And most people seem to be worried about their families getting affected. A lot of people are concerned about the economy. Luckily, not many people are worried about grocery stores. I'm most worried about hospitals being overrun. We ran those numbers already. This is me being angry at Trump for giving medical advice, and he probably needs to talk to his makeup people as well. And then this is me grilling some wings before my interview with Mike from Kentucky. This is interesting. The Putin administration is claiming fewer COVID cases than Luxembourg. So there's that. This is the math we did earlier, but I'm going to go through the whole thread. So remember this one, 330 million Americans, 50 million are 60 and older. If you assume half of them get infected, that's 25 million infections. If 10% of infected need critical care, that's 2.5 million, but there's only 100,000 ICU beds today in American hospitals. So it would be 225 times the demand that would be crashing on these hospitals. So here's a data visualization about why everybody's talking about flattening the demand curve for care, which is to flatten the spread. But if you look on the left, even if you do flatten that demand curve, it could be as much as 25 times how much you need. So I would encourage everyone to ask their elected leaders, what's the plan? Because I don't feel like we're getting an answer. We're getting a lot of, don't worry about it. We have this new medicine. It's going to be fine. And I don't buy that. This is a visualization of how fast this thing could spread by mid-May, depending on whether you have some control measures or no control measures. Now, the interesting thing is, I know, Peter, you're saying you're complaining about open borders, but America is a country with open borders in that people in every state are able to travel throughout the entire country. So you may want to think about your anger about open borders and maybe look a little closer to home. All right, so that was that one. And then, so, Trump talks about those 2 Navy ships. Just for numbers, each of those Navy ships have, stop sharing screen. Let me come back. Each of those naval ships have capacity for 1,000 patients. So if you need 2.4 million new beds, 2 ships is not going to do it. So don't let anybody tell you that those ships are going to solve our problems. Okay, then if I go back, this is, we looked at this earlier. This is the daily cases. But what I was trying to make the argument was that, people, I've seen news of people still going, especially like in some parts of the country, to concerts and amusement parks and hang out in large groups. And I hope if you have friends that are not taking this seriously, that they start taking it seriously because they're affecting other people. So this is just me being angry at people who are like going to spring break parties and stuff. It's just ridiculous. This is me kind of being disappointed that Trump is calling it the Chinese virus. I mean, for sure, it originated in Wuhan, China. His argument that, well, I call everything that originated from a place by its name. There are a lot of things that came out of China, like printing and gunpowder and compasses and clocks and steel and pasta. But we don't always call it that. Now, we could argue about, like, okay, is this identity politics or not? But is this somehow unifying the world by calling it China virus? On the other hand, after the dust settles, again, I'm all for massive economic repercussions for China if they don't get their food distribution and production standards way, way up. So I'm no apologist for China, but I just don't know why you're calling it the China virus, especially since there's so many Asian Americans who are, already dealing with some discrimination because of this stuff. Then what do we talk about? I thought I had another interesting number here. Hold on one second. Maybe those are most of them. Oh, this is a good one. So you remember when Trump said that no one in their wildest dream could ever have predicted Corona? There's actually a real billionaire who talked about this in great detail. And it was basically Bill Gates 4 years ago talking about.
The reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic. Let's look at Ebola. I'm sure all of you read about it in the newspaper. Lots of tough challenges. I followed it carefully through the case analysis tools we use to track polio eradication. And as you look at what went on,
this video is from
the problem
2015.
wasn't that there was a system that didn't work well enough. The problem was that we didn't have a system at all. In fact, there are some pretty obvious key missing pieces. We didn't have a group of epidemiologists ready to go who would have gone, seen what the disease was, see how far it had spread. The case reports came in on paper. It was very delayed before they were put online.
At any rate, if you're interested, this is a TED Talk by Bill Gates saying we're not ready for a virus epidemic. And that was in April of 2015. So when you hear people say nobody had ever expected a pandemic, just know that Bill Gates expected it. Even the US CDC expected it. A lot of people saw this coming, and don't give people, our leaders, a get out of jail card on this one, because scientists have been talking about pandemics. The US military had been talking about this. By the way, while we're on this topic, the US military has also been talking about climate change. So if you ever have a president say nobody expected massive climate change in their wildest dreams, you should call BS on them, because you can find tons of peer-reviewed scientific research reports about the risk of a pandemic and biological kind of threats to national security. And it's not always about building walls on the Rio Grande. So at any rate, let me just do a little more Twitter liner notes, and then I'll calm down because I'm getting pissed again. But so my tweet was that maybe Trump should watch less Fox and Friends and watch more TED Talks, because these three, they're not hired for, they're not the intellectual brain trust of America. Let's just say that. And then let's see, it's me promoting the, this is on March 9th. So remember, we all looked at that data about how we had stopped flights coming in late January. China had stopped travel within its country in mid-January. And here's on March 9th, the president, these are his own words. I'm not making this up. I'll just let you guys read it. it says that the fake news media and their partner, the Democrat Party, is doing everything with its semi-considerable power, it used to be greater, to inflame the coronavirus situation far beyond what facts would warrant. The Surgeon General says that the risk is low to the average American. So this is not me being hard on Trump, Peter. This is not Trump saying this like a year ago. This is March 9th, guys. March 9th. It's 13 days ago that he said that it's just an inflamed Democrat hoax, far beyond what the facts would warrant. So, any rate, that's our president. So I got pissed about that. And then the other interesting thing, if you want to look at the data, is that 90,000 people liked that tweet. If you go here, you see when he was, actually 91,000 Americans liked the president's tweet saying that this is not a big deal. There's no risk. 25,800 people retweeted it. So that's one way to be a leader in a crisis, blaming it on your political opponents and calling it no risk to the average American. Freaking Donald Trump. Oh, this is interesting. So you want to see how one country does it. Those Singaporeans, when they test someone who's positive, they assign them to stay at home notice, right? Or if they come from another country, even if they don't test positive, they have to self-isolate for 14 days. And how do they do it? Well, you get a notice at the checkpoint. You get these text messages that are sent at various times of the day, and you have to give an update on your location with your GPS from your mobile phone. They do random house calls. If you get a phone call, you must take photos of your surroundings to verify your whereabouts. And my understanding is that if you are infected and you are caught walking around outside without permission, it's like a $10,000 fine. So, I'm not saying that America should do what Singapore is doing, but I will say that they are not playing. The Singaporeans, they do not play. And maybe that's why they have far less spread and deaths per capita than many other countries, even though they were victims of a lot of traffic of visitors from China. Okay, then this is me yelling at people saying like, dudes, don't go to these large social groups and party over spring break because it's bad karma. This is, I think it's pronounced Cenk from Young Turks, and his kids are half Chinese or Chinese ethnicity. And basically his kids are being blamed for spreading the virus and being asked if they eat bats. And his 9-year-old son came home and asked him, if it was true that it was his fault, which is very sad. Another reason why calling it the Chinese virus is not cool. Let's see. Yeah, this is him saying that Trump calls it the Chinese virus because he was angry that people were saying it was developed by the U.S. military. Generally, I have found that when you use anger as a reason for doing anything, it's generally not a good leadership principle. every time I've done something out of anger, I usually regret it. But I'm not the president.